Welcome into the holiday edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. Happy to be joined today by SEC Mike. You guys know who he is. Michael Bratton joins us on the show. Mike, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Trey. It's always a treat having you on my show, that SEC podcast. So, hey, it's an honor to do your show.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, and it's the holiday season. We've got bowl games going on. We got the transfer portal going on, signing day stuff going on. It's chaotic. It's never a day off in college football, as you know. So let's start in the transfer portal, Michael, where we have seen. I think I saw a number that there were around 1,500 players in the transfer portal as we are having this conversation right now. And I would love to know your thoughts on how you think this has played out since the first day it opened, and then realizing we have got until January 19th, if I'm not mistaken, until this thing closes. What's your early thoughts on how this has played out?
Well, I mean, it's nothing short of amazing, to be honest with you, Trey. I keep track of all the players from the SEC that have jumped into the portal, and A&M's got over 20. Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Alabama, they're close to those figures as well, just below A&M. But man, it's absolutely chaotic, and I don't know if it's a good for the sport. I don't know if it's bad for the sport, but I certainly think that teams like LSU and Ole Miss, I think they've kind of laid a blueprint. If you want to turn over your roster in a single offseason, it can be done. And I bet you Billy Napier, of course, they're kind of doing it now, but I bet Billy Napier kind of wishes he would have taken that tactic as well, because I don't want to say he's run off a lot of people, but clearly a lot of players not buying into his vision. A lot of them quit the team. Some of them got dismissed. Now we're seeing I think they've got like 17, 18 in the portal right now. So we're starting to see those defections now, but it's almost a year too late. Like Brian Kelly did that right off the bat, and it worked well for him. Again, same thing with Lane Kiffin. So it's pretty fascinating. And I don't judge, obviously, Billy Napier. Again, I don't try not to be too harsh on him. Just 1 year. Auburn, Hugh Freeze, the progression, the turnover of the roster, I should say, that's only natural. But who I'm really got a keen eye on is A&M, Alabama, and Arkansas, because those are three established programs in the SEC. I realize putting Sam Pittman in that category is kind of interesting, but this will be year 4 for him, and his roster is getting turned over overnight here. So really got to see what those programs add, because man, they're getting devastated right now by the transfer portal. And like you said, we still got a little over a month here before the thing closes back up.
It's crazy to see. And I want to get your thoughts on A&M for a minute with Jimbo Fisher. And we all knew that there was going to be a slew of players that entered the portal after the season. Some did it towards the end of the season. Okay, understandable. But when you look at the amount of players that have left from that 2022 class that everybody had a hissy fit about, rightfully so, and you look at where we stand at right now, like expectations for Jimbo Fisher next year are going to be playoff caliber team. Like that's what Texas A&M's paying for. And when you look at, they got a commitment from Marcel Reed from NBA right there in the Nashville area. But you look at the other players that have dipped out of College Station, and NIL is a factor in a good amount of this. What, in your opinion, what went wrong in College Station, and how much time do they actually give Jimbo to turn this around? Because the 8-4 next year is not going to cut it. Like they have to be in the playoff conversation towards the end of the season for them to be satisfied.
Well, I'll disagree with something you just said there, Trey. The expectations college football playoff, because I've been really hard on Jimbo Fisher this season, and they come at me, and they come at Paul Feinbaum, and they don't. And I'm talking the majority of the fans. They think we just got it out for A&M. We hate their culture. We hate their program, even though that's never been the issue. That's never even been suggested by myself. I've never heard Paul Feinbaum call that out. We sit here, look at the roster Jimbo's got in year 5 in a hotbed for talent. And hell, I mean, he's knocking out of the park, not only with select prospects in Texas, but all around the country. He's done a great job reeling in talent from across the country, yet the results are not there, and we're the bad guy. So they're all in on Jimbo, regardless of what they're seeing on the field. It's excuse after excuse after excuse. Last season, remember, it was the quarterback.
Yep.
Oh, he's horrible. We're off on him. Haynes King, that's our savior. Literally 2 games in the season, they won his ass gone. I mean, it's just going to be another excuse after another excuse because they can't buy him out because he won the national championship with Jameis Winston close to a decade ago. He's done nothing in the SEC. I don't know how you look at anything he's done in the last 8 years and say this is the guy that's going to lead us in the future when you got guys like Brian Kelly coming to LSU and they're in the SEC championship game. You got Lane Kiffin here in Oxford, which no disrespect to Ole Miss, but about halfway into the season, they had the 3rd best record in the SEC spanning 2 seasons. I mean, Josh Heupel at Tennessee, I mean, Tennessee was a dumpster fire. They were number 1 in the college football playoff poll. These things can happen in College Station. They're not happening, but Jimbo's not the problem. It's people calling out Jimbo's track record as a problem. So that's why I say college football playoff or bust. Hell, we've been saying that it seems like for 2 or 3 seasons, and they're getting further from that, Trey, than they were 2 or 3 seasons ago, yet they're entrenched with Jimbo. So I don't know what the expectations are. And I'm not sitting here saying you got to fire everybody and that'll solve everything, because I do think in college football, anybody that knows what they're talking about will tell you talent is the main ingredient to reaching the pinnacle of the sport. A&M can attract the best talent. We've seen that. Can they keep them happy? Can they develop them? Those are 2 bigger issues. But I do think if they land an elite play caller, and it's interesting to me, Trey, that they've not done that yet, which that leads me to think that they're going after someone that is still coaching in a college football playoff type game or the NFL. And I know the popular rumor is Garrett Riley, even though I believe it was Football Scoop reported that he turned them down.
Right.
But he only turned them down till the season's over. Then things could change in a hurry. You know what I mean? So I think with the right play caller, I think A&M can turn it around. And I'm trying to jump back on the bandwagon. But again, I don't know what the expectations are because they're god awful. They were literally, they're probably the 12th best team in the SEC this year. And yet, because of this mega contract we gave him, he's nowhere near the hot seat, apparently, when I think he should be on the hottest seat probably in the country.
Yeah, but if you go, let's just say his team goes 7-4. Oh, sorry, 7-5 next season. Okay, that's nowhere near. You can try to.
That'd be an improvement. That'd be a big improvement.
Right, you can try to spin that as an improvement, but that is not what they hired him to do. So, in my opinion, 23 is a massive year for Jimbo, and if they want to keep him around, 2 reasons. You got expansion that's coming up with Oklahoma and Texas going to join the conference. Second thing, college football playoff expansion is coming. So that's why I look at it and say, Michael, that they better be in contention for the playoff if they want to have some kind of success, because I'm tired of hearing, okay, well, we're building, we have young players. Okay, look at our class. Look at how we can build it. Bro, you've been there for over 5 years. I'm sorry, Jimbo, but these are not the expectations for the program.
Well, I think you hit on the most important thing right there, Trey. And again, I'm not trying to completely bash A&M, but their fans or anything, but there are some let's call it little brother syndrome down there. If Sarkisian gets it rolling in Austin, and I don't have a lot of faith that he'll do that because I think he's an excellent offensive coordinator. I do not believe he's a very good head coach. But if he gets that thing rolling, and let's say Texas with Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers takes that next step, if they are in the playoff consideration and we're sitting here spinning our wheels with Jimbo and the Longhorns are getting closer and closer to joining the SEC, I think that is what it will take for A&M to make a move on Jimbo Fisher. If Longhorns keep spinning their wheels, I think Jimbo's fine.
we look around college football and we look at the transfer portal, we look at NIL, which NIL was started for players to be able to make money once they got to campus and once they showed out, once they proved themselves on the field. Endorsement deals will come in from local businesses, sometimes national chains will get involved. We've seen some of that around the SEC. But since there's no real legislation on how to rule this from the NCAA, this is pretty much like what Lane Kiffin has called this a lot, which is free agency. It's a buyer's market right now. And the numbers that I'm hearing for players, I think it was reported this week, somebody covering North Carolina, and I'm sorry I don't have the name, I apologize, but they saying Drake May was being offered, over $2 million. Then I think the number was 4. I think over $2 million to leave and go play at another school. How, and you hear the numbers. I hear the numbers on these players that are getting offered this amount of money. And some of these are high school players. It's not all transfer portal players, as some like to think. A lot of these are high school players as well. Your thoughts on what you've heard when it comes to numbers and how NIL has played out over the last, I don't know, we'll just say 8 months, because I think the spring was kind of a trial period for when this was going to go down.
Well, what's interesting, Trey, is kind of the market is still being set, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, I've heard some crazy things like 50,000 is like the going rate for running backs at the Power 5 level. And I'm sitting here trying to think, I don't know if that's starters, if that's all running backs at the, let's say an SEC and ACC level, but
that's a semester.
I mean, that's a lot of our listeners. That's their annual salary. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah,
and we're not even talking about left tackles or quarterbacks or big time corners. So I mean, the going rate for these guys is incredible. And man, I mean, Mike Leach, rest his soul. I don't know if you caught this, Trey, but he had a wild idea at SEC Media Day, something like, maybe we just have two kind of labels for players, professionals and non-professionals. And the professionals, every year they can negotiate these NIL deals and switch teams and do whatever the heck they want. The non-professionals, they got to stay at their institution, but maybe every year we give them $50,000, and upon graduation, $200,000. He had some zany idea like that, but that may be what we have to do. Again, I'm all for player movement, but some of these, like JT Daniels, I mean, it's kind of not to necessarily call him out, because he's not the only one, but there's several like him that are transferring 4 different times. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anybody knows what the answer is. And unfortunately, the people that are in position to make these decisions are leaving it up to our government. And I don't even follow politics, Trey, but I can tell you that ain't going to solve anything.
No, they don't know how to fix it. And look, I again, like you just, I mean, I'm all for players making money. I mean, and they should. You look around, even in the SEC, you look at some of the brands that are coming aboard and getting a part of players that are, either still playing right now or had big seasons, and they're trying to jump on that train before the player, starts his NFL career. I think when you look at NIL overall and the amount of money being offered to Power 5 quarterbacks, it is kind of shocking. You sit back, and I think the reason why is because I think the reason why people are kind of thrown off a little bit about this and kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening? Is because in the past it was all done under the table. It was in school, fans didn't want to admit that maybe there was something going on, with a player or why he was there. But if we're being honest with each other, there's a high percentage that a reason why a 5-star is at one school pertaining maybe to another is because of money situation playing a factor in it. Now we're seeing everything above board, and we're seeing these NIL contracts that are being offered. I talked to one assistant coach last night, and it was funny. He told me, Trey, there would be no way for us to be able to afford this player with the amount of the less amount of money that they have right now in NIL in a collective or in a war chest, as a lot of people are calling this now. So you get into this situation where you're getting into a bidding war, then all of a sudden the bidding war gets to one mark and some school has to fall off, and the other kid's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going here. It's not all of that, but I'm telling you, the great players, it is now not just about, I want to see if you agree with me. It's now just not about, hey, I can go to Alabama, I can go to LSU, I can go to Georgia, I can be a star. You're starting to throw the money factor in there before they even get on campus.
No doubt. And I even know, Trey, of active players in the SEC. I guess they're not technically SEC players now because they're in the portal, but they are jumping in the portal and they have handlers, so to speak, letting them know what the offers are on the table. And then they're going back to their team, which is an SEC teammates, and saying, here's the figures, get in the portal. You may not want to leave where you're at, but you'll force the school's hand to pay you X amount. I mean, this is going on all across the country. And again, I'm not even necessarily saying that's right or wrong, but I don't think that was the intent.
No.
And I mean, I can't imagine, one like a guy like Marshawn Lloyd, who I'm sure he's going to get paid because some of the schools, and he was already getting paid at South Carolina. So I'm not sitting here saying he's not getting paid and all that, but the way I hear it, he met with Beamer, everything's good. We'll be back ready to rock next season. And then a day later, he's in the portal. And he's not the only one. So, I mean, I don't know how in the heck you manage all this. Throw in high school recruiting, throw in coaching carousel, throw in, we got bowl game in a week. I mean, it's ridiculous that this is all going on at the same time. Whoever thought of this did not think it out. And I love all these things, but we need to push high school. We need to get rid of the early signing period. I like the idea at the time. It makes no sense to have it now, particularly when half your dang class is enrolling early and they're going through bowl practice and all that. We don't need the early signing period. The transfer portal, I love it, but we probably shouldn't have it until the college football season, and that includes the bowls until the bowls are complete, because this is just insane how we're doing all this.
Well, if somebody wants to enroll early, like my opinion is, okay, if they're set in stone on where they want to go enroll early. Like that's fine. Like you can, I don't know. If somebody wants to go to Vanderbilt early and get started, okay, you're good. Go enroll. We don't have to do the signing day type of thing. Like you're at the school, you're done. But I think what they've done with this 45-day period with the transfer portal, and coaches are frustrated. They are pissed off that they're having to deal with high school recruiting. Like you just said, they're dealing with high school recruiting along with the transfer portal, along with prepping a team for a bowl game, along with at the same time, there's coaching carousels, like you said, going on where these guys are trying to figure out their future and what they're going to be doing in this business at some places. So it is too much. And I don't know what that means. I think when they came up with these portal windows, the 45 days after the championship game selection, and then you get it in the spring, after spring practice is over, so players get an opportunity. That's where I see a lot of these players, making headway after spring practice. I'll give credit to Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel has done really well trying to plug spots after the spring period, where okay, this is what we need. I thought we were good here. Okay, now let's go try to fill the spots. And there's other schools that do that as well. But I look at it overall and I think, okay, how can we stop this going forward where these coaches are not thinking about leaving the college football game because the work has gotten even crazier, and keeping them in this sport, not trying to go off to the NFL? I mean, Mike, I had one coach, that was sitting there saying, man, I'm not only dealing with 16-year-olds now, I'm dealing with 21 and 22-year-olds trying to get a payday.
Right. And don't think, this portal window has been open for, what has it been, like 2 weeks now?
Like 2 weeks.
As
Yeah.
as soon as signing day, it's going to ramp up again because there's going to be assistants moving and there's going to be, roster spots full. And then after the bowl games, it's going to ramp up again. I mean, this is going to be 45 days of chaos that
Yeah.
it's not slowing down anytime soon.
And what was your thoughts? All of our hearts were broken. What? I mean, it was a week ago, pretty much to the day. Maybe 24 hours off. Mike Leach passes away. Such a special coach in his own type of way. And I think he was great for the Southeastern Conference. I think Mississippi State was a really good fit for him. You can try to do your thing. You can try to lay low in Starkville and just kind of live a life. It's different at schools, like Georgia, LSU, Alabama. I'm not saying he wouldn't succeed there. I'm just saying it's a different lifestyle in Starkville because you got to think he went from Lubbock to Pullman to Starkville. Okay, and he did good at every school he went, but he's going to be remembered for a lot more than what he did on the field. And every time you think of the air raid, every time somebody says air raid on a broadcast, if somebody's stolen the ball 40, 50 times, first thing that's going to come to most folks' minds, you and my age and a little bit older, is Mike Leach. Just your thoughts on the man that he was and everything that he enthralled as a head coach and just as a person.
The thing that has kind of struck me the most, Trey, is, and maybe just because you laid it out so eloquently, he's been all over the country, but just the lives he touched. And I mean, I knew he was a popular figure, but I had no idea how popular. And it wasn't just football coaches or football players. It was analysts. It was, any from Donald Trump, president of the United States, to university presidents, to people at the local watering hole. Yep. I mean, this man could relate to anybody, and it just seemed like everybody had just a special story that made you laugh, that made you think. And there's just not, I don't know that there's another guy quite like Mike Leach. And I'm just, heartbroken for him and his family and Mississippi State and really the game of college football, because we're worse off for not having Mike Leach. And he was the only coach, Trey, that on our show, we play these coach clips all the time. He was the only one we ever played that was outside the SEC. And we hoped and hoped and prayed that he'd finally make his way to the SEC. He did. And it was just tragically too brief. And man, I would just always the greatest what if in SEC history, Mike Leach leading the Vol Navy down there. Oh God, I would have loved that, because he would have won there too. He may have not won a national championship or anything like that, but it would have been a hell of a great time. And I guarantee you he would have done better than Jeremy Pruitt. And I'm just devastated to see him go.
It's crazy if folks don't know kind of what we're talking about with Tennessee. Is former Tennessee athletic director John Currie, during the whole Schiano stuff, as everybody remembers, flew out to the West Coast to meet with Mike Leach down in San Francisco. I think Mike, if I'm not mistaken, had gone by Twitter headquarters. I think that's where he was. And then he was leaving, something like that. And then he was leaving. And thanks to public record request, we got to see the messages from Mike Leach and John Currie. And the one message I'll never forget is, Mike Leach he texted Currie, who was there to visit, and said, I'm sitting on a park bench out here. And I forgot where he had said that he was at, but like, just picturing Mike Leach sitting down with a cup of coffee on a park bench, probably some walkway out in San Fran. And he's just sitting there texting on his phone. He's waiting for John Currie to show up. And, it didn't work out. They had met, but it didn't work out. And John Currie was told to get back home. And it pretty much sounded like, from interviews that Mike had done, if if Curry wasn't pulled off the road, he could have been the head coach at Tennessee, which is it would have been fascinating to see what he could have done. But in the end, I think he ended up at the better spot. I don't know if you want to call it fate. I don't know how to call it. But I think Mississippi State was the better spot for Mike Leach. And it's crazy that it got to that point that he was that close to being the head coach at Tennessee.
And I love the fact that he won his final game, a game he had yet to win
Right?
down there, the Egg Bowl. I mean, it was what every coach, I imagine, that's kind of the, it's a tragedy. So we can't call it a happy ending, but an ending that they'd want. The biggest rivalry, one he had yet to win. I believe he struggled there at the Apple Cup too. I mean, it's just so those wins are tough to come by. Yet he came away a winner like he was, and it's complete BS, Trey, that he is percentage points away from the college football Hall of Fame threshold. I hope they amend that. And if you remember,
Oh, yeah.
The Memphis game that was stolen from him 2 years
Yep.
ago on some BS calls. Apparently, had they won that, he would have had the winning percentage. So, man, just give it to him. Come on. If Mike Leach is not in the College Football Hall of Fame, they might as well do away with the thing because it's worthless.
I agree. He would even deserve to get in my opinion, as an assistant coach. If you just look at his track record and what he was able to accomplish as an assistant with Hal Mummy and others before getting that first job at Tech, and then he was Oklahoma, Kentucky. I mean, you could just name it, and he was a part of it. So it's sobering to know that we're going to have a college football next season without Mike Leach. But he'll be remembered for all the great things. I think that's why you see all the people coming out. Hey, last question for you, man. The college football playoff, Georgia, Ohio State. What kind of game are you expecting in Atlanta from this? I can go back and forth and over the board on this one, but what's your thoughts on Georgia getting that next game here in Atlanta?
You know what's interesting, Trey? I mean, it's easy to look at it and say Georgia, the more consistent team, Georgia, the tougher team, the more physical team. And that was Ohio State's Achilles heel against Michigan. I mean, I think Georgia is like a better version of Michigan. So you could certainly see a path to Georgia winning and winning comfortably in this ball game. But I would potentially flip it and say, new life for Ohio State. They've got nothing to lose. Everybody's going to be picking against them to lose in Georgia's backyard there. And I really do think the only way to beat Georgia, and it's not an easy path by any means, but you got to outscore them. And you got to have the quarterback and you got to have the receivers. And I think Ohio State has that. Now, that sounds easy, but Georgia's got them one hell of a defense. So that is what the incredibly hard part is actually getting that done. Georgia has struggled at times to punch it in the red zone, scoring touchdowns down there. So, again, Stetson Bennett, you can't say anything bad about the guy. Otherwise, you hate him, you hate Georgia and all that, which is not true. But I do think Ohio State's got an advantage at quarterback. So, again, if it is a high-scoring game, if it's back and forth, that favors Ohio State. I think that's their only shot. But, yeah, I mean, certainly I expect Georgia to win it and probably win it comfortably. For whatever reason, the first college football playoff we ever had was amazing. And
Yep.
basically all the rest have been done.
Yep.
Aside from a good title game here or there. So, yeah, history suggests we'll get another blowout and the Dogs win big.
Oh man, we're gonna find out. We're a couple of weeks away from everything popping off in Los Angeles. We've got the semifinals. That would be the national championship game in Los Angeles. Semifinal games in Atlanta and at the Fiesta Bowl in the Tempe area between Michigan and TCU. Buckle up. We're here. It's bowl season. We got some fun matchups ahead. Semifinals. Then we get the national championship and the Gator Bowl, Citrus Bowl, all that fun stuff as well. So lots of stuff heading your way in college football, transfer portal stuff. So just keep your eye on it. We'll keep you up to date on here. Mike, tell everybody where they can follow you, buddy, and all your great work.
Yeah, just search out SEC Mike on Google, Twitter, whatever. That's me. The show, That SEC Podcast, available wherever podcasts are found. We got the website, thatsecpodcast.com, and we're also we on YouTube. So our show is daily, all SEC, highest rated SEC show on Apple and Spotify. So come check us out.
That's fantastic. That's Michael Bratton, also known as SEC Mike. I'm Trey Wallace. This has been the Trey Wallace Podcast. Wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Happy New Year, whatever you want to call it. I'm wishing you happy times during those events. Mike, thanks so much for joining. I'm Trey Wallace. We'll see you next time on the Outkick Network.
Awesome. Anytime, brother.